It all begins in the near future, where mysterious portals suddenly appeared all over the world. These portals, known as gates, led to dangerous labyrinths called catacombs. Inside these places lived all sorts of bizarre creatures and scary monsters. And if one of these portals was ignored, creatures living inside would invade our world. With that, monsters began a huge invasion, and humanity had no way to defend against them. But some people discovered that if they stayed in the catacombs for a while, they would awaken powers. Using these new special abilities, humanity could finally fight on equal terms. People who explored the catacombs became known all over the world as players. Years later, in a classroom, a teacher explains that this has become the most respected profession. At this moment, we see a young student who seems very bored with his class and lets out a sigh. This is our protagonist, Sota Hazaki, a boy who doesn't seem to care much about the subject. He then writes in his notebook that his parents were players, but they both already fell in battle. His dream was to become a great player just like them, to honor their legacy. But while he was distracted, a strange shadow appears outside the classroom window. The silhouette suddenly transforms into a bizarre face with a very creepy smile on the glass. With the sudden shock, he can't control himself and lets out a scream of panic. His classmates look at him, and one boy complains, saying that Sota is loud. The young man fell out of his chair from the scare, and a girl asks why he suddenly screamed. Meanwhile, two female students whisper to each other, saying they think he's a pretty weird guy. Sota gets embarrassed by the situation and remembers this has been happening to him for a long time. Our protagonist can see things other people can't, and it scares him. This ability of his to see spirits first appeared when he was just a small child. His father took him to a catacomb, hoping to awaken some special ability in him. But the boy was so terrified of the creatures that he couldn't awaken any power at all. Because of this, he didn't become a powerful fire mage like his father, who was a great hero. Back in the present, a classmate approaches and asks if Sota is okay after the scare. The guy holds out his hand to help him up, and he thanks him a bit awkwardly. Sota is surprised by the boy's gesture, as he seems like a really nice person. The student who helped him is named Takuto, one of the most popular students in the entire school. Takuto Seiga was his childhood friend, but things between them changed over time. He was one of the few who awakened a skill, and because of that, he became a highly respected player. Takuto then whispers in Sota's ear to meet him at the usual spot after class. Our protagonist's expression changes instantly, and he knows trouble is on the way. Other students comment on how nice Takuto is for helping Sota like that. But Sota wonders how that guy is nice, and if they even know the same person. After class, the protagonist gets roughed up by his friend, who shows him no kindness. Lying on the ground, Sota hears the bully telling him to hurry up, because he doesn't have all day. Takuto and his friends surround the boy and call him Mr. Paranormal to make fun of him. Sota gets really annoyed by the taunt and clenches his fist on the ground, angry at the situation. Then, the bully grabs him forcefully by the collar and demands that he hand over all his money. Sota gives him all the money he has, but the bully complains that it's not nearly enough for him. The protagonist then explains he can't give any more because he needs it for his mother's treatment. This answer makes Takuto furious, and his expression completely changes to one of anger. He hurts the boy and tells him not to waste money on his father, who passed away like a nobody. Then, the aggressor mocks the situation and says he feels sorry for what a loser Sota is. The young man remembers his mother in a coma at the hospital and his father perishing in the flames of a dungeon. Takuto continues to put him down, saying his parents were useless and that he just pretends to have powers. The bully even asks why a family as pathetic as his even exists in the world. But he doesn't like the hateful look on Sota's face and gets even more irritated. Sota stares back at him with a defiant look, no longer willing to obey him. The aggressor then says that for someone with no power, he's being very bold and daring. With that, the bully lands a very strong hit on Sota's face, sending him flying to the ground. The impact of the attack is so powerful that our protagonist blacks out instantly and is left unconscious. In his thoughts, the boy wished he could get his skill back so he could heal his sick mother. But deep down, he knew this was an empty hope and that there was no way he could achieve it. Seeing the boy on the ground, one of Takuto's friends comments on how weak he is. The group's leader then decides it's time to put his plan into action and grabs Sota. He says that since his parents can't do it anymore, he'll train the boy himself. Next, the aggressors take him in front of a green portal that was glowing in the forest. The protagonist is terrified when he realizes what they plan to do with him there. He stares ahead and can't believe they brought him to a real gate. Takuto explains that he found the portal yesterday and that this will be a lesson for the protagonist. Scared, Sota asks if this isn't dangerous, but one of the bullies seems to agree with him. The aggressor then scolds his friend and asks if he has any complaints about the plan. At this, Takuto boasts that he has already cleared tougher portals and tells Sota not to be afraid. Our protagonist is frozen and clenches his fists tightly, not knowing what to do. Because of his hesitation, he ends up taking another very strong hit to the face and falls backward. A new cut opens on his cheek and starts to bleed from the harsh attack. The bully threatens him, saying to stop complaining or next time he'll take his hand. He creates an energy weapon and threatens to go after the hospital where our hero's mother is staying. Hearing this threat, the young man grinds his teeth with rage but can't do anything to fight back. With no other choice, he finally agrees to enter the dungeon to protect his mother. The protagonist turns to the portal and tells the aggressors that he's ready to go. The group enters the catacomb and is soon surrounded by strange, floating purple spirits. These creatures have a ghostly appearance and look like floating skulls made of energy. Just as he imagined, Soda notices that none of the other boys can see the spirits there. And even though he's completely terrified, the boy knows he has to face this challenge. Suddenly, a different kind of spirit appears in front of him, and this one is made of flames. The fire creature then flies at high speed toward our frightened protagonist. A reflection of the approaching flame can be seen clearly in the boy's terrified eye. He screams in fear and throws himself to the side to dodge the creature's attack. The bully yells at him and tells him to stop being scared, as it was nothing to worry about. He even makes fun of him, saying that Soda is the son of the strongest mage and is still afraid. Takuto says he's tired of his excuses and that the boy has no reason to live. Soda remembers his father wasn't a good role model for him during his life either. He left his sick wife in the hospital to go on a mission in a catacomb. The boy thinks his father prioritized fame and status over taking care of his family. Back in the present, the aggressor says Soda can just be done with it and meet his pathetic father. He then makes a gesture across his neck and tells the young man to just disappear already. With tears in his eyes, the protagonist curses the bullies with all the anger he felt. At that moment, the fire creature remains still in the air, observing the whole situation. The boy gets annoyed and thinks even that spirit is looking at him with pity. A mysterious voice then asks if the spirit was also making fun of him. Soda is very surprised by what he just heard and doesn't understand where the voice came from. Suddenly, the fire spirit multiplies, and now there are two of them floating in the air. The creature gains a face, and the mysterious voice tells the boy to pay close attention. Takuto doesn't understand anything and asks Soda what he's staring at now. But before he could react, the bully is hit by an attack he can't see. The impact makes him spit out a red liquid, and he's left confused about what just happened. Just then, he looks down and sees something went right through his chest in a devastating blow. The bully lets out a desperate cry of pain while his friends watch the scene in shock. A giant spider appears, revealing it was the one who attacked Takuto with one of its legs. One of the boys recognizes the monster as the Spider Queen, boss of a red portal. The creature then begins to feed on the aggressor, who is still alive and screaming in pain. The mysterious voice says this is a horrible end, but that he got what he deserved. Next, an army of smaller spiders emerges and surrounds the boys who are still alive. The bully's two friends are terrified by the number of monsters surrounding them. Desperate, one of them shouts for the other to run away from that place as fast as he can. But our protagonist remains frozen on the ground, unable to move from fear. The creatures close in on him, ready to attack and end his life once and for all. The young man then wonders in despair if this is really his end, and if he would perish there. With his eyes closed, he screams in his mind that he doesn't want to go out like this. No way. The mysterious voice then encourages him, telling him not to give up and open his eyes and see. It tells him to focus and feel everything happening around him in that place. At that moment, a bright light illuminates Soda, and a system message appears before him. The notification says he has exceeded the time limit in the catacomb and awakened a new ability. He is surprised, and the message explains that a blessing from the place gave him this special power. His new ability is called Legacy, and it has to do with the lost souls there. The protagonist wonders what lost souls are and looks at the fire spirit beside him. The small flame then begins to glow intensely, releasing a very powerful energy. The mysterious voice that was helping him calls Soda by name, which really surprises him. Suddenly, the small flame transforms into a human figure, which was his late father. His father's spirit then extends its hand to the boy, as if wanting to help him there. Soda can't believe what he's seeing and asks if that is really his father in front of him. Even though he's confused by the situation, our protagonist reaches out his hand to touch his. But one of the nearby spiders gets ready to pounce on the boy with its sharp claws. The moment their hands touch, a bright light shines, and a power is transferred to the young man. With that, a barrier of fire forms around Soda, protecting him from the monster's attack. Following that, a huge fire explosion occurs, hitting all the creatures there. The explosion's power is so great that it destroys all the spiders in the blink of an eye. After the dust settles, we see our protagonist standing in the middle of all the destruction. His body was now covered in a fairy aura that made him more powerful. He looks at his hand, and the system explains the skill allows him to inherit powers from souls. Tears stream down his eyes, and Soda is happy to finally have a power and be a player. The Spider Queen, watching from a distance, tells him not to get too excited about it. Spiders that survived the explosion prepare to attack the boy all at once. Soda gets scared when one of the creatures leaps toward him, ready for a final attack. He doesn't know what to do, and his father's spirit tells him to concentrate and look. His eyes begin to glow with fire, and the young man focuses all his attention on the creature. The voice then tells him to concentrate and use his vision to see the monster clearly. With his new vision, he can see inside the spider and focus on its weak point. The monster then seems to feel threatened and begins to charge an energy attack in its mouth. With that, it fires a powerful red beam, but our protagonist manages to dodge just in time. Soda wonders what that was, and his father explains he managed to see the monster's soul core. The spirit says all living beings, whether players or monsters, have a core as a source of power. And by focusing his vision on it, the young man forced energy to gather in the creature's mouth and attack. At that moment, the giant spider climbs the cave walls and glares down at him with great anger. His father then warns him he can't keep dodging forever, as he'll get caught eventually. The creature prepares to attack once more, its eyes glowing with a very bright light. Our protagonist is surprised, but we don't know the reason for his sudden reaction. But suddenly, Soda kicks the spider's attack, deflecting it with his fire-covered leg. The blow he deflected hits the cave floor, causing a huge impact throughout the area. Next, the boy charges forward and lands several flaming punches on the giant monster's legs. He wonders how he's able to fight and realizes his body is moving on its own. His father explains that he didn't just inherit the skill but also all his fighting techniques. The young man is shocked to learn he can now use all of his father's abilities. His father's spirit then appears behind him and supports him with a look full of pride. Sota feels more confident with his father's support and understands what he needs to do now. He looks forward with a determined gaze, ready to fight with everything he's got. Sota and his father's spirit prepare for the final battle against the fearsome Spider Queen. The boy charges forward with everything he has and lands a powerful fire punch on one of the smaller spiders. With his special vision, he spots the weak point of another creature nearby. The monster attacks with an energy beam, but the young man narrowly dodges the blow. The reflection of the creature's core shines brightly in our hero's flaming eye. Using his new ability, he can clearly see the spider's vital point. Sota understands this was the monster's weak spot and his chance to win the fight. He then leaps over the creature to gain momentum and prepare his final attack. The young man dives with all his might and hits the spider's energy core dead on with his fist. With a battle cry, he unleashes all his firepower to destroy the monster. The blow is so strong that the creature's core shatters into several pieces instantly. The boy stands still while the body of the monster he defeated burns in the flames. He then walks calmly as the creature's remains turn to ash behind him. The last remaining spider is also engulfed in flames and easily defeated. Sota now seems much more confident and controls the fire in his hand with mastery. With a new attack, he incinerates the last spider, finishing the fight once and for all. The boy is relieved, and his father says he did well for his first battle. The spirit explains his skill allows him to inherit powers by hearing a soul's regrets. Sota asks how he knows all this, but the spirit tells him to focus on the fight for now. His father reveals that until now he was in a semi-awakened state and saw vague souls. But now that his power has awakened, he can finally communicate with his father for real. The spirit says he can now even talk to the souls he comes across. With a smile, the boy's father greets him and says it's been a long time. Sota gets emotional hearing his father's voice again and doesn't know what to say. Seeing his son's reaction, the man's spirit gets a very sad expression on his face. He then places a hand on the boy's shoulder and apologizes for everything that happened before. But the young man explodes with anger, asking why his father didn't stay by his mother's side. The man then closes his eyes, revealing his only wish was to be able to save his wife. Our protagonist is very confused by this answer and doesn't understand what he means. He then explains that the boy's mother was poisoned, and he needed the spider's fang. We see a flashback of him fighting the monster, thinking victory was certain. He searched everywhere for a red portal to find the antidote ingredient. But unfortunately, the hunter ended up falling to a deadly trap inside the catacomb. Sota is completely shocked to hear the truth and can't say a word. The spirit admits he was weak and ignored everyone's warnings not to go on the mission alone. He understands his son's anger, but the boy yells that he's much angrier than he thinks. With tears in his eyes, the young man can't understand the confused feelings in his heart. He holds on to him and yells, asking why he tried to do everything alone since they're a family. The boy says that even if he was useless, he wanted to help and just wanted to talk. The spirit is moved by his son's words and looks at him with a caring gaze. Sota then wipes his tears and says with determination that now he's the one who will save his mother. The young man promises he will become a great player to surpass his father's legacy, and that he'll do whatever it takes to become the strongest so no one else has to get hurt. His father's spirit smiles proudly and says the boy is saying some pretty bold things. He then hugs his son tightly in a very emotional farewell moment between them. The man says Sota is his greatest pride and that he has always loved him more than anything. He says he really wanted to tell his son this, that now he has no more regrets. The spirit begins to fade away, asking the boy to become stronger than everyone else. His last words are for him to take care of his mother, and then the spirit vanishes completely. Sota looks at the particles of light and thanks his father for everything he did for him that day. With a smile, he holds the light to his chest and thanks his father one more time. The fire creature says Sota has grown up and that it misjudged him for thinking he was a crybaby. The boy then thanks the spirit for its help, but the creature says it doesn't like being complimented. It tells him to drop the formalities because they aren't strangers. Our protagonist asks if the creature knows him and who it really is. Not understanding it all, the boy asks directly who this mysterious fire creature is. The spirit seems to hesitate to answer and is silent for a brief moment. It then tries to introduce itself, but its voice comes out all distorted and incomprehensible. Sota doesn't understand anything and asks what it said, but the spirit seems confused too. It tries to say its name again, but its voice keeps coming out with a very weird sound. Annoyed, the creature multiplies and tries to shout, but the distortion in its voice only gets worse. The fire creature seems frustrated, saying it's no use because it can't communicate properly. It explains it's like a bug in the world system, and that's why its speech has limitations. The spirit then tells Sota to call it whatever he wants, but the boy doesn't seem to have any ideas. With that, the creature strikes a pose and asks the young man to pick a really cool name for it. Sota thinks for a bit and suggests the name Tamao, since it looks like a floating soul ball. The spirit is shocked by the terrible name and its flame goes out, turning to stone on the spot. Annoyed, it asks what kind of naming sense that is and attacks the boy, who complains about its attitude. The creature sighs and says he was right, so it accepts the name to end the discussion. Tamao gets serious and says that more importantly, the boy has a mission to complete. Our protagonist's expression changes to one of determination, and he nods in agreement. The spirit likes his attitude and says that this expression suits him much better now. A mysterious voice then emerges, telling Soda to go to the catacomb if he wants to find her. Our hero is pulled into a light while the voice says she'll be waiting for him anytime. The voice finishes by saying she will always be in that same place, waiting for his return. Outside the portal, the two bullies who ran away are exhausted and very out of breath. One of them wonders why a red portal's boss was in a green-colored portal. Suddenly, the gate begins to glow with a very bright green light and make a lot of noise. A strange energy surrounds the two boys, and they don't understand what's happening. One of the aggressors looks at what's happening with an expression of pure panic on his face. The gate then starts to sound like an alarm, and a bell-like sound echoes throughout the forest. The gate glows brightly, and the boys realize it's some kind of irregular and dangerous gate. One of the bullies is confused and asks his friend what that really means. Portal colors define the danger level, but when a gate sounds an alarm, it's different. This means the danger level rises, and what was a green portal becomes a red one. He says they need help but doesn't know how to explain they went in and hurt a classmate. His friend is speechless and doesn't know what to do or how to get out of this complicated situation. Scared, he blames his friend who was taken down, saying it was all his fault in the end. Without a second thought, the two decide to abandon the protagonist and run away from that place for good. One of them even says it doesn't matter, since it'll just be one useless guy who vanished off the map. The boy adds it was just like they were throwing out the trash and nothing more. But to their surprise, Soda walks out of the portal and says he's sorry for being trashed like they said. The aggressors are completely panicked when they see the boy manage to get out of there alive. He stares them down with a serious look and an intimidating aura that scares them a lot. One of the bullies can't control himself and screams desperately, asking why he was still alive. Our hero's eye then begins to glow with his newly awakened ability. The aggressor yells angrily for Soda not to ignore him, but he and his friend are trembling with fear. Using his vision, the boy can see their souls and notices something strange. He realizes the strength of their souls is nothing compared to the spiders he faced. The bully points at him, accusing him of being responsible for their friend Takuto's demise. The other boy agrees, saying everything that happened in there is his fault alone. The bully accuses him of causing Takuto's end to steal his skill for himself. But Soda closes his eyes and ignores the accusation, saying he needs to talk to the other boy. The young man in the beanie is very confused and doesn't understand what our protagonist wants with him. At this, the other aggressor becomes furious for being completely ignored by the green-haired boy. Angrily, he rushes forward and tries to land a punch, shouting for Soda not to underestimate him. But Soda dodges with ease and takes him down with a single blow that sends him flying. The attack is so fast and strong that the aggressor can't even see what hit him. The bully is knocked out cold and falls to the ground, completely unconscious after the hit. Our hero then turns and walks toward the last boy who is still standing. The guy in the beanie is terrified by Soda's strength and can't believe what he just saw. He wonders if Soda became a player and stares at him with a threatening look. On top of that, he realizes the boy not only awakened powers but became way too strong. The protagonist approaches him and calls him by his name with a very calm expression on his face. With that, Soda tells the bully he needs a small favor from him now. He then cracks a smile and asks if the boy would be willing to listen carefully. Completely intimidated by his strength, the aggressor nods his head without hesitation. A short time later, the two enter the now much more dangerous catacomb again. The bully says it's impossible for them and that they should wait for help outside. But Soda explains that an irregular gate like this one can change at any moment. And if that happens, it will be too late for them, as they'll have no way to escape that place. Soda says they need to defeat the Spider Queen before it's too late for them all. The aggressor is shocked and asks if the young man really intends to fight the portal's boss. He insists it's better to call for help, but Soda says there's no time and a voice yells for them to wait. The two turn around, surprised by the sudden shout, and don't know where the new voice came from. A new guy appears and says he won't forgive those two for acting however they please. He seems very annoyed with the situation and glares at them with a look of pure rage. The newcomer has a stylish pompadour and yells that he won't let them do whatever they want. Soda asks who the stranger is, but the man says he doesn't introduce himself to suspicious people. Our hero tries to explain, but the newcomer cuts him off, asking what's going on. He explains that he found a fainted boy outside and now it's just the two of them in there. Hearing this, the guy with the pompadour says he has enough evidence to detain them both as suspects. The protagonist pleads for the guy to listen, but he seems to be preparing for a big fight. The man yells that he didn't ask any questions as a fiery aura intensely surrounds his body. He then charges straight at Soda to land a very powerful blow. The stranger attacks with a powerful kick, but our hero prepares to counter. Seeing he has no other choice, the young man makes up his mind, his gaze shifting to one of determination. Soda manages to land a punch on his opponent's chin, stopping the attack. The man is surprised by the boy's strength and compliments him, saying he's a really good fighter. He then reveals his special skill is called Man of Steel. This power allows him to turn his body into steel, making him much more durable. The man with the pompadour complains that his fist hurts from the boy's punch. The bully recognizes the power, saying if he uses it, they won't stand a chance. With that, he tells his partner to fall back for now, leaving Soda confused by the sudden order. The Man of Steel yells at them not to run, as this was supposed to be a fair fight. The aggressor doesn't think twice, running to the back of the cave to hide. Left alone, the guy with the pompadour yells for them to come out from wherever they're hiding. He demands a fair fight, but our protagonist hides behind a rock to think. The fire spirit recognizes him and mentions it's that wretch Tuma with his smug look. Suddenly, a young man's soul appears, saying he's finally going to teach the Man of Steel a lesson. Our protagonist doesn't know what to do, since he can't use his fire or he'll hurt himself. He asks if they know each other but screams in shock as the ghost gets closer. The spirit is surprised and asks if Soda can see him, to which the boy says yes. The ghost explains that they've disliked each other for a long time and decided to settle it with a fight. We see a flashback of them facing off, but the spirit says he ultimately lost the fight. He says he planned to get revenge but ended up passing away in a catacomb before he could. Angrily, the ghost says he can't rest peacefully because of his immense frustration. Soda then understands the situation and says maybe he can help with that little problem. Toma gets annoyed by the delay and asks if the young man has finally decided whether to fight or not. Our hero turns around and shouts the Man of Steel's full name, leaving him completely baffled. The guy with the pompadour is confused, asking how he suddenly knows his full name. Soda moves toward his adversary, preparing to attack with everything he has. He apologizes to the Man of Steel and hits him with an unexpected move. The young man uses a new skill, zapping his opponent who is paralyzed by the shock. Toma is stunned, unable to believe the boy has another secret skill. With his body paralyzed, the Man of Steel can't defend himself and falls to the ground, defeated. The spirit celebrates the victory, saying he finally got what he always wanted. He then thanks Soda, saying he can now depart in peace with no regrets. Soda reflects that everyone has their own regrets and says goodbye to the young man's spirit. A system message appears informing him he has inherited the shock skill from the spirit. At that moment, the bully who was hiding calls out, and our protagonist turns to face him. The aggressor is shocked to see the young man defeat such a strong guy all by himself. He asks why Soda didn't run, but Soda replies that he still needs to ask why he was brought there. Our hero then reveals that he needed that boy's special skill for something. The young man in the beanie has the power to manipulate poisons, which is why they call him the Poison Master. With the right ingredients, he can create any type of antidote to help people. Soda remembers how that boy always helped him when the others treated him badly. He then asks what the boy wants, stating he's going to take down the Queen Spider. Our protagonist needs the Poison Master to make an antidote to save his mother. He says the boy doesn't have to join in, but the bully insists he'll participate in the fight. The aggressor then asks Soda to save Takuto, who is poisoned by the giant spider. He pleads, saying he knows he has no right but that he awakened his skill thanks to him. The beanie-wearing boy calls him a benefactor, kneeling for having been saved several times before. He asks one more time, but our protagonist refuses to help someone like him. The young man says he'll never forgive him and tells him to save his own friend while he fights. Soda states that he won't interfere with the boy's decision and turns his back to leave. The bully is speechless, unsure how to react to our hero's negative response. But then he cracks a smile, apparently understanding what the protagonist meant. The guy in the beanie thanks him, just as Tuma, who is on the ground, finally wakes up. But suddenly, the two boys hear a noise and are startled by what they see. Toma gets up in tears, and when the protagonist asks if he's okay, the man tells him to be quiet. The Man of Steel complains that Soda should have just told him the reason, but the young man says he wouldn't listen. He then smiles and says since he's already involved, he'll help them with their mission. Our protagonist is a little worried by the stylish pompadour guy's sudden decision. Soda says it's dangerous, but Tuma tells him not to worry because he wants to do this. The Man of Steel's expression turns serious, and he looks ready for the great battle. Just then, the Queen Spider appears, and Tuma says there's no time to run anyway. The giant creature stares them down with glowing eyes and a terrifying smile. At this, Tuma yells for everyone to get ready, and the trio prepares for the big fight ahead. The Spider Queen faces the group with a dark, intimidating aura, leaving everyone frozen in place. At that moment, the Poison Master asks Tuma about his experience in catacombs. The guy with the pompadour replies that he's defeated a purple boss before, but this is his first time facing a red one. He says he'll be the shield for the others, but Soda dashes past him in an instant. Toma, confused, yells out, asking what he's doing as the young man charges forward alone. Just then, the giant creature prepares to strike with its sharp claws at high speed. The boss unleashes several purple energy slashes that fly toward our hero. Right after, the monster gathers a sphere of power in its hand, readying a new blow. In the blink of an eye, a beam of energy is fired with overwhelming force. But the protagonist manages to dodge, leaping over the attack with incredible agility. The Steel Man is shocked, wondering if the kid has cleared a red portal before. Next, Soda lands a powerful punch in the creature, and the tough guy recalls he only awakened recently. Toma says that no matter how you look at it, those are the moves of a seasoned veteran. Suddenly, our hero's hand is covered in flames, revealing his fire ability. Toma then realizes that Soda was holding back in their previous fight. Inspired, Tuma yells that he can't lose either and activates his Steel Man ability. With his body strengthened, he charges forward, landing a powerful blow on one of the monster's legs. The Steel Man looks up with a serious, focused expression in the middle of combat, but a smaller spider suddenly appears, and Tuma knows this is bad news. He uses his arm to block the creature's attack, but realizes his defense isn't holding up. The smaller creature prepares to finish Tuma, who senses his end is near. But Soda leaps off a wall, rushing in to save his new companion. The protagonist then uses his electric shock ability to paralyze the monster. The attack sends the spider flying, and the green-haired young man lands perfectly on his feet. Our hero warns that the creature's shell is too tough and his attacks won't work. He suggests using fire and asks the steel man to distract the spider queen. Toma gives a confident smile and says he likes reckless plans like this one. Soon after, he activates overdrive mode, and his entire body becomes covered in steel. He withstands a barrage of attacks from the giant creature without moving an inch. The boss realizes its attacks are useless against the player's new form. The steel man warns that his mode won't last long and that he's counting on Soda. Just then, the spider queen reveals its horrifying mouth full of sharp, pointy teeth. The creature lunges forward to attack, and Tuma yells that it took the bait. At that moment, our hero appears from behind, preparing his flower flame technique. The protagonist lands a direct fire-based hit on the distracted monster. The giant creature lets out a cry of pain as it's completely engulfed by the flames. The force of the impact hurls the boss backward into the cave wall. Soda complains about the monster's quick reflexes, but Tuma points out the fire is working. The trio then breaks into a run to regroup and come up with a new strategy. The Poison Master is impressed, thinking that with the two of them, they might just win this. The Poison Master hears a strange noise and asks what it was. He walks toward an object he finds lying on the cave floor. The guy in the beanie realizes it was his friend Takuto's shoe. His eyes widen in pure horror as he understands what happened. Just then, the Spider Queen appears, its mouth stained red, and lets out a terrifying shriek. The boy explodes with rage and charges, screaming to attack the monster with everything he has. But the creature strikes him with one of its legs, slamming him violently to the ground. The monster then prepares a final blow to end the young man's life once and for all. Suddenly, a yellow blur flashes in front and blocks the attack at the last second. The tip of the creature's leg shatters into pieces from the impact. The steel man wonders if his steel body has grown weak, as his chest is now wounded. Soda rushes toward them, yelling for the boss to stop it right now. The giant creature manages to grab our hero's leg before he can strike. With a shriek, the boss spins and hurls him to the ground with immense force. The protagonist is thrown so hard that the impact creates a small crater. He cries out in pain from the violent fall he just suffered. Down on the ground, his two companions look on with worry, shouting his name. The Spider Queen lifts him into the air with a strand of purple energy web. The monster opens its terrifying mouth, ready to deliver the final blow. But Soda thanks Tuma. Because of him, he was able to get close enough. The steel man cries out in surprise, realizing the protagonist faked being knocked out. In that moment, Soda plunges the spider's own fang into the creature's head with all his might. His companions are shocked and Tuma asks what that is. He then realizes it was its own fang and asks if the boy grabbed it earlier. With that, the protagonist activates his electric shock ability, paralyzing the boss. Tuma wonders if he channeled the electricity directly into the monster's body. Our hero then says it's over as his body is covered in a fiery aura. Then with a shout, he unleashes his power in an attack called Hellfire. The Spider Queen exhales black smoke after being hit by the blow. The giant creature collapses, defeated, its body still burning. He tells his father that he did it, and now he can finally save his mother. The two companions approach as Takuto's body lies on the ground. Toma tells them to carry him outside to give the young man a proper burial. The steel man turns to the protagonist and congratulates him on the great victory. Soda thanks him, saying they couldn't have won without his new friend's help. Toma says that having multiple abilities is insane, but he enjoyed the fight. Our hero then explains that he learned to use electricity thanks to Godo. The young man says he wants to visit his grave to thank him properly. The protagonist is completely stunned by the revelation, unable to believe what he just heard. Tuma insists he met him yesterday and there's no mistake, as the spirit looks on confused. Suddenly, the protagonist has a strange vision and feels a piercing headache. Tuma rushes to his side and asks if the green-haired young man is okay. Just then, Tamao says that he has touched the root of this world and begins to glow intensely. Soda calls the fire spirit's name, trying to understand what is happening. He then has a vision of an unknown girl and wonders who she could be. The fire creature tells him to remember who it is he must save now. The voice finishes by saying it's not just his mother, leaving the mystery hanging in the air. A while later at the hospital, Tuma asks if the face he saw was really the one. Tuma and Goto start arguing, unable to believe the coincidence. Goto then remarks that he has a spoiled vibe despite his tough guy look. The young man gets furious and demands to know why he was called over just to be insulted. The argument continues until Soda interrupts, reminding them they're in a hospital. The protagonist then asks if the portal they cleared is secure. Kotora explains that once a boss is defeated, the gate stabilizes and there's no more risk. The Poison Master thanks our hero for clearing the catacomb for them. With a smile, Soda says he's going to check on Kotora and waves goodbye to the two. Goto then asks if that kid really managed to defeat a portal boss. The Steel Man is shocked to hear that it was actually a red-colored portal. Toma explains the ability to inherit powers from souls, calling it insane. He also adds that the protagonist is fast and has incredible courage in a fight. Toma smiles, saying the protagonist might be a good addition for something. Goto asks if he means recruiting him, and Tuma immediately confirms it. The Steel Man's expression turns serious as he asks for a very important favor from his new acquaintance. The scene cuts to the two of them arguing intensely again in the hospital. One of their shouts echoes down the hall, startling two nurses passing by. Meanwhile, outside, the Poison Master's hand glows with a purple aura. He's kneeling on the ground using his ability to analyze Takuto's shoe. At that moment, Soda approaches from behind to see how the guy in the beanie is doing. The protagonist asks about the analysis and the boy says the process is almost done. The Poison Master says he was worried because our hero had suddenly passed out. Soda replies that he heard everything from Tuma and thanks him for carrying him out of the cave. The boy in the beanie explains that he did it since his injuries were the lightest of the group. He then apologizes for getting in our hero's way during the big battle. The green-haired young man tells him not to worry, as he understands that feeling all too well. The young man admits he dislikes Takuto but says he won't deny the other's feelings of admiration. With a smile, he adds that he can't compete with that kind of powerful emotion. The Poison Master looks confused, but Soda just says it was nothing important. Soon after, he announces the analysis is finished and holds up a small vial. The vial glows green as the words "bad medicine" appear on the screen. The boy hands over the antidote, telling the protagonist to get it to her quickly. With a smile, the protagonist says thanks and takes the vial containing the antidote. He runs off excitedly, thinking that now, he can finally save his dear mother. The scene cuts to our hero's mother, lying unconscious in a hospital bed. Soda approaches her with the medicine in hand, ready to cure her once and for all. He carefully pours the green liquid in his sleeping mother's mouth. A green healing aura envelops her body as the antidote begins to work. Slowly, the woman's eyes begin to open after being in a coma for so long. The green-haired young man watches, his eyes wide with pure expectation. She then wakes up and calls his name, leaving the young man emotional and teary-eyed. The woman touches her son's face affectionately as he cries with happiness. She says he's grown so much and that she's happy to see him again after all this time. In that moment, our hero's mother asks about his father and how everything happened. With a sad expression, she wants to know what his feelings were in the end. The boy explains that saving her was his father's wish, a wish that was entrusted to him. The young man shows her his flames, saying he inherited all of his father's feelings and powers. The woman recognizes the power, saying those are the flames of Kiichiro, her late husband. With that, she asks her son what he plans to do with his life now. His mother explains that he has already fulfilled his father's wish by saving her, so what's his next step? Our hero sits thoughtfully on the edge of the bed, reflecting on his future. With a determined look, he says he will become the strongest so that no one else is ever lost. The green-haired young man then asks if his mother objects to his new life's goal. To his surprise, she replies that yes, she is against his decision. She explains that just the thought of her son in danger makes her chest tighten. But the protagonist reminds her that she and his father made him go through those very same feelings. The woman smiles, admitting it wouldn't be fair of her to try and stop him from following his path. With a smile, the young man is touched by his dear mother's understanding. She then asks him to promise that his "no one gets lost" rule includes himself as well. The woman says with a loving smile that she couldn't bear to lose him too. The green-haired young man blushes at the touching moment and promises to take care of himself. The two embrace and the protagonist promises he will never fall, no matter what. A while later, our hero leaves the room with a determined look on his face. But he's startled to see his new friends waiting for him right outside the door. The protagonist realizes they overheard his entire conversation with his mother. The steel man apologizes awkwardly, but the green-haired young man says it's fine. Kotora says the real problem is that they entered the catacomb without permission. But Tuma reassures him, saying his team will handle all the paperwork. He confirms that everything is already sorted out and there's nothing left to worry about. With a confident smile, Tuma invites Soda to join his team. The young man is surprised, but Tuma reminds him of his goal to become the strongest of all. He tells the boy he'll find that strength with them and that he will become the strongest. Far away, a mysterious golden gate suddenly appears in the middle of a forest. Elsewhere, a silver-haired person sitting on monsters comments on Tuma. He says that he too wants to meet this mysterious person who has appeared. With an excited smile, he reveals he wants to meet the young man named Soda Hazaki. The scene cuts, explaining that a team is an organization registered with the association. They receive official approval to explore catacombs and defeat portal bosses. Toma then brags about being a member of the most famous team Tenru. The Poison Master is surprised, saying Tenru isn't just the best in Japan, but in the world. The young man mentions there are 10 squads, each with a highly skilled captain. With a shout, the Steel Man confirms that the guy in the beanie is absolutely right. Toma then compliments Kotora, noting he's very well informed. The guy in the beanie explains that Takuto admired the team and was training to join them. Tuma understands the situation as the Poison Master gives a sad smile. Just then, Soda says he also knows a little and reveals the commander's name, Yamato Sumeraji. He has resolved incidents worldwide, and the association has publicly named him the strongest. The protagonist gets a little nervous at the idea of meeting someone so incredible. Toma asks if he's nervous, but the boy denies it, thanking him for the opportunity. The Steel Man smiles and compliments our young hero's impressive courage. He then announces their arrival at the headquarters, but the place just looks like a normal, old house. The trio stands before a wooden house built in a very traditional style. Toma tells them to just watch and opens the door with a confident smile. Upon entering, the trio is shocked to see the interior is a modern, luxurious building. Kotora wonders if this is also some kind of special ability. Tuma brags about the headquarters but is cut off by a new character. An older man gives him a hard nuji while scolding him for his attitude. The newcomer says he heard that he acted alone and explored a catacomb on his own. Toma tries to defend himself, saying he got permission from Yamato and calls the man bro. The older one says he knows, but holds him tighter, asking why he did it. He then reveals that Toma dumped all the paperwork on the second squad. Toma complains that Goto was the one who snitched on him to his older brother. The protagonist tries to calm the situation as the two brothers continue to bicker. The older one introduces himself as Yuzi Igarashi, the vice commander of Tenru. Soda and Katora are stunned to discover the true identity of the man before them. The green-haired young man tries to apologize, but Yusei says it was his brother's fault. Suddenly, a new voice chimes in, telling him to take it easy, since it was to help people. The silver-haired newcomer smiles as Toma excitedly calls out Yamato. Our hero is in shock, realizing that this person is Yamato Sumeraji, the strongest. He thinks the man looks more normal than expected, maybe even a bit thin. But upon using his special vision, the protagonist's eye begins to glow with fire. He sees that Yamato appears to be an ordinary person, or perhaps even less than that. With a friendly hug, Yamato says he's been wanting to meet our protagonist. The green-haired young man gets flustered, thinking he's more laid back than he imagined. The commander then surprises him, asking if he truly wants to become the strongest. With a smile, he invites him to see what the strongest really is. Soda's eyes go wide as he considers the proposal for a moment. Then, with a determined look, the young man accepts and asks him to show him. The others are shocked by the sudden decision, not understanding what's happening. But Yamato tells them not to worry, promising to go very easy on the rookie. He gestures to the protagonist, who looks excited and completely ready for the challenge. The older brother agrees, warning that he'll intervene if things get dangerous. Our hero takes his stance, feet planted firmly, prepared for the big test. The commander calls him to the training room and walks ahead with confidence. Suddenly, the environment around them begins to transform as if an ability was activated. The place becomes a digital space with columns and windows made of pure blue energy. The young man finds himself alone in a completely white, empty room, confused. He's baffled by the sudden change and doesn't know what to expect. Yamato's voice warns that he's going to attack with his left and tells the boy to defend well. The protagonist's eyes glow. He knows he can't let his guard down for a second. The commander gets ready, but our hero sees no change in his power aura. But then, an explosion of golden energy erupts from his fist with immense force. Soda is stunned by the absurd power he just witnessed right before his eyes. The commander then charges with a direct punch, leaving the protagonist no time to react. He's frozen in fear at the speed and force of the attack coming his way. The blow is so powerful that an explosion erupts, sending the young man flying backward. The impact is so great that he's blasted through a wall and sent soaring. Our hero is thrown clean out of the training room, landing violently on the floor. His friends shout his name, worried about what just happened. Lying near the destroyed wall, the boy thinks an explosion went off right next to him. He then realizes it wasn't an ability, but rather a soul in human form. The protagonist understands Yamato is a mass of pure energy, not an ordinary human. The commander seems surprised by the boy's analysis of his true nature. With a smile, he asks if the young man wants to continue, calling him for another round. Soda accepts the challenge, his body covered in flames, ready for the next fight. He moves forward, planting his foot firmly, and prepares to attack with everything he has. The commander easily dodges and lands a quick blow to our hero's face. Yamato is surprised by the boy's agility and seems impressed with his technique. He then unleashes a series of rapid punches that the protagonist can barely even see. The young man thinks that even with a defense, he won't withstand another hit like that. A voice in his head tells him not to track with his eyes, but to feel with his entire body. The commander then moves in for the final blow, demonstrating what it means to be the strongest. With his body ablaze, the protagonist shouts for the commander to show him more. Yamato gets excited and says that now the boy is really on fire. He charges forward with a powerful punch and a confident smile on his face. Our hero manages to block the blow, but its sheer force astounds him. From a distance, the two brothers watch the intense exchange between the fighters. Yusei comments that the idiot is completely obsessed with this fight. He also says he didn't expect Soda to last this long against Yamato. Tuma grows concerned at the comment and asks his brother what he means. But Yusei just smiles and says that actually, the situation turned out quite well. The protagonist's hand glows with an intense flame, showing all his power. His face bruised, he asks if he can go all out using his abilities. Yamato then calls him So-chin, surprising the green-haired young man. The commander says that asking for permission like that is no fun at all. With a challenging look, he tells the young man to come at him with everything he's got. Soda lets out a battle cry, preparing for his strongest attack. His fist is covered in a massive amount of golden fire energy. He then launches a large sphere of flames toward his opponent. The world's strongest man calmly watches the attack approach. The boy's ability creates a fiery explosion of overwhelming power. Yamato smiles, recognizing technique of the strongest fire mage, Seiichiro Sasaki. With a simple motion, the commander stops the powerful fire attack with just one hand. He stands in the middle of the flames as if it's nothing and smiles at the boy. Soda is shocked to see his attack blocked and asks what he thought of his power. The world's strongest man praises the boy's courage for standing firm within the flames. With a smile, Yamato says he's liking this young protagonist more and more. The green-haired young man gives a nervous laugh, but seems happy with the compliment. The commander says that with this, he can probably level up in the fight, but suddenly an emergency alert sounds, warning of an enemy invasion. Our hero is surprised, wondering about the invasion that was just announced. The silver-haired man complains because things were just starting to get fun. The narration explains that if a boss isn't defeated, monsters will invade the real world. Yamato says this happens when players fail to clear a catacomb near the city. With a serious look, he asks Yusei which teams are ready for battle. The vice commander checks a device and reports that squads 1, 2, and 5 are ready. The leader orders squad 5 to guide civilians while the others stop the enemies. He then tells the two brothers to take their teams to the gate, and they agree. Soda asks what Yamato will do, and he replies he'll attack directly and defeat the monsters. With a determined look, our hero asks to go with him on the mission. The commander agrees but warns that he'll be left behind if he can't keep up. He also calls for Kotora to join them, telling him to look after the protagonist. With a determined shout, Yamato orders everyone to advance and not let a single person fall. The entire team responds in unison, leaving the base for the city at high speed. The commander and our hero sprint through the streets side by side with incredible speed. Kotora falls behind, panting, trying to keep up with the frantic pace of the two ahead. The guy in the beanie is shocked by their speed, but notices something about his friend. He thinks that Soda must have already hit his limit after all the battles he's faced. Suddenly, a bizarre green creature explodes in an intense flash of light. Yamato is revealed as the one who destroyed the monster with a single punch. The world's strongest man continues on his way with a serious expression. He then notices that the protagonist is at his breaking point, running through the ruined city. Thinking he expected too much from the boy, Yamato begins to run even faster. At that, the green-haired young man stumbles and collapses, completely out of strength. The poison master runs to him worried and asks if his new friend is okay. Soda remains on the asphalt, panting and unable to get up. He feels like everything is miles away, seeing Yamato as a tiny figure in the distance. The guy in the beanie thinks this is impossible and they should leave the rest to Tenru. Kotora approaches his friend, who is still down on the ground, exhausted. He asks why Soda is pushing himself so hard, telling him to let Yamato handle everything. The protagonist reflects that he never made his own decisions, always blaming his own weakness. But he says he decided to become the strongest, and if he gives up now, he'll have nothing left. With a determined look, he says he wants to catch up and refuses to be left behind. The poison master takes out an empty vial, seeming to have an idea to help. Using his poison alchemist ability, he begins to create a new potion. Our hero watches his friend with a serious expression, waiting to see what comes next. The guy in the beanie then throws a new vial with a red liquid to the protagonist. Soda catches the potion in midair, surprised by what his companion just did. Kotora explains that drinking it will unleash his hidden power and strengthen his body. But he warns of side effects and asks if the young man still wants to drink it. Meanwhile, Yamato continues to fight off monsters with incredible ease. He defeats several creatures with quick blows and asks what they think of his power. Near the portal, Yusei reports that the boss isn't there and must have escaped into the city. The commander orders them to stop any more enemies from leaving the portal at all costs. He remains on the phone, coordinating the teams for the impending battle. Suddenly, a giant heavy ogre appears and Yamato realizes it's the portal boss. With a calm, confident look, he says he'll finish the monster off once and for all. His eyes glow with an intense light, showing he's preparing to fight. But suddenly our hero appears and lands a powerful punch on a random monster. A massive shockwave spreads through the city from the force of the boy's attack. The guy in the beanie sits down impressed and tosses the empty vial into the air. We see that Soda drank the potion without hesitation, surprising Kotora with his resolve. The protagonist's eyes glow with an intense golden power and fierce determination. Kotora cries out in alarm at the wave of energy spreading down the street from the new power. The empty potion vial clatters to the ground as the green-haired young man unleashes his strength. With a smile, the guy in the beanie encourages his friend to keep going and show his worth. Soda defeats a giant monster with a single blow, his body burning with flames. Yamato is impressed, saying the boy isn't half bad for a beginner. Suddenly, a red monster with a skull necklace appears with a menacing glare. Our hero is enveloped in an intense golden aura, increasing his power even further. With a firm gaze, he declares he won't give up and will stay right behind the commander. The red monster lets out a roar of rage, preparing for the great battle. The world's strongest man runs to help, a serious expression on his face. He realizes the protagonist is releasing all of his power at once. The golden aura around the young man grows even stronger and brighter than before. His eyes also change color to an intense gold, reflecting his newfound strength. Yamato explains that the heavy ogre is the boss from the Red Gate that caused the invasion. He confirms the monster is a Red Gate boss and asks if the young man can handle it. With a confident shout, the protagonist confirms he can take care of the huge enemy. The commander smiles and asks him to hold the monster off for just a little while. Our hero is confused by the request, but Yamato says he'll finish things up soon. He then leaps onto a nearby building, leaving the protagonist alone against the boss. Soda thinks that the commander is already far ahead, and he can't fall behind now. He tells himself to focus, certain that he will take down the massive monster. The heavy ogre prepares to attack with its giant heavy wooden club. Our hero dodges the blow, which carves a crater in the ground with its absurd strength. The young man realizes the monster's defense is insanely high and he needs a plan. He decides to attack with fire up close, then finish it with hellfire. With a battle cry, the protagonist charges and lands a flaming punch on the giant. The blow hits squarely, but the monster seems to feel absolutely nothing. The heavy ogre then counterattacks with a look of pure fury on its face. Our hero is hit and thrown backward with overwhelming, undefendable force. The impact is so strong that he crashes through a building wall, leaving a hole. He spits out a red liquid, realizing the monster didn't suffer a single scratch. The ogre reveals its resistance to fire, putting the protagonist in a tough spot. The young man knows that lightning only stuns the monster, it won't defeat it. Desperate, he wonders what he can do to beat such a powerful enemy. His eye glows with a golden light as he tries to think of a new strategy. The monster stares at him with a bored expression, as if he's no threat at all. Our hero is enveloped in a golden aura but seems to be out of attack options. Suddenly, a voice in his head tells him not to rely so much on his father's abilities. Tama then appears and asks if he truly knows what to do next. The fire creature says he's being overconfident and fighting recklessly. The spirit then announces it will teach him its final move, to be used only in emergencies. Our hero is excited by the idea and Tamao says the technique is extremely powerful. The green-haired young man listens intently to the instructions for the new move. The creature explains that only those who understand the soul can use this special ability. Soda asks curiously what kind of move he is about to learn. Tamao says it doesn't matter if it's a punch or a kick, but about pouring every bit of aura into one blow. The protagonist argues that he already does that, but the spirit says this isn't about holding back. The creature explains that aura flows through the body, making it hard to gather in one spot. But if the young man understands his soul, he can control the flow and attack with greater power. The spirit warns that it takes insane concentration to gather all the aura. It also sets why it's being taught only as a last resort. The creature then reveals the name of the move as Soda prepares to use it. Suddenly, everything becomes quiet, and the protagonist no longer feels any pain. He realizes the fight against Yamato helped him sharpen his combat focus. Just then, the heavy ogre charges with a war cry attack our hero with everything it has. With a focused, determined look, the green-haired young man prepares for the final blow. He visualizes the flow of energy in his body, concentrating it all into a single point. With a calm expression, he says that he now finally understands how to use the technique. The protagonist then leaps into the air, preparing to deliver his strongest blow ever. The heavy ogre tries to defend itself, but the force of the attack is far greater. Our hero touches the monster's head with a surprisingly calm look in his eyes. His body glows with a combination of fire and electricity, showcasing his new power. He uses lightning to paralyze the giant, leaving it vulnerable for the next attack. The ogre lets out a cry of pain as its body is completely overtaken by electricity. With the monster immobilized, the protagonist faces it up close with a determined gaze. He then concentrates all his energy into his fist for the final, decisive blow. His hand glows with an intense golden light, showing the power accumulated there. The narration then reveals the name of the move that will end the fight once and for all. With a shout, Soda unleashes Soul Explosion, hitting the ogre with overwhelming power. The monster is sent flying into a building while its body is engulfed in flames. The impact destroys part of the structure as our hero watches the result of his attack. The heavy ogre screams in pain as the flames consume its entire body relentlessly. With his fist still glowing, the protagonist says that he finally won. Panting, he thinks that now he might be a little closer to Yamato in terms of power. But suddenly he feels his body falter and loses his balance. His hands begin to tremble as he feels all his strength draining away. The young man then collapses exhausted, with no energy left to continue fighting. He remembers Katora's warning about the side effects of the potion he took. Down and vulnerable, the protagonist is surrounded by the remaining monsters. The monsters slowly close in on the protagonist, who lies defenseless on the ground. They form a circle around him, ready to strike and end his life for good. The green-haired young man curses the timing of the side effect. Meanwhile, atop a tall building, Yamato admires the view of the invaded city. He's impressed by the building's height and seems to have a plan in mind. With a confident smile, the commander says that this is a good vantage point. He takes a firm step and prepares to use one of his abilities. The silver-haired young man leaps from the building, flying through the city at incredible speed. With an excited smile, he says the view from up here is simply superb. Yamato then lands on top of another building with impressive agility. He takes out his phone and asks Yusei if everyone is ready for action. The vice commander informs him that squads 1 and 2 have sealed the enemies in the tower. The world's strongest man thanks him and turns to the horizon with a serious look. With a determined gaze, he says it's time to begin the final attack. An intense blue energy aura envelops the commander's body with immense power. His feet float off the ground as electricity crackles forcefully around him. He then unleashes all his power, and the entire building is covered in blue energy. The electricity spreads like a spiderweb, destroying all nearby monsters. The shockwave travels through the city, eliminating creatures over a vast area. Back on the street, the monsters surrounding Soda are struck down and defeated. Lying on the ground, the protagonist tells himself that he can't give up. With great difficulty, he pushes himself up, determined to keep fighting until the end. But a new horde of monsters advances toward him, ready to attack. Soda watches the creatures approach, seemingly out of strength to fight back. Suddenly, a wave of blue energy hits all the monsters around him. The enemies are paralyzed by the electricity, unable to move an inch. The green-haired young man is shocked, wondering if this is the commander's doing. The blue energy spreads across the entire city in an absurd display of power. From afar, Yamato notes that covering 5 kilometers took a little bit of time. He then closes his fist, concentrating all his energy for one final blow. The commander unleashes his technique called Punishment with overwhelming force. All the monsters in the city are struck by electricity, suffering massive damage. The creatures scream in pain as the blue energy courses through their bodies. The other members of Tenru watch, awestruck by their leader's power. The protagonist stands amidst several fallen monsters, unsure of what just happened. He's shocked to realize he was saved by the strongest man's area effect attack. The young man checks himself and sees that he's completely unharmed by the blast. He realizes the enormous energy aura wasn't just released wildly across the city. It was precisely controlled to avoid hitting the civilians hiding in the buildings. We see several people emerging from their shelters, saved by the commander's ability. He also realizes the attack was focused primarily on the ogre. The giant monster is completely consumed by the blue energy, screaming in agony from the blow. All the monsters on the street are defeated, turning into sparkling dust after the attack. Our hero lets out a nervous laugh, amazed by what he just witnessed. With a smile, Yamato approaches and congratulates the green-haired young man on a job well done. The protagonist thinks to himself that the strongest is on a completely different level. Suddenly, he collapses from exhaustion, and the commander catches him before he hits the ground. Yamato is surprised, not expecting the young man to pass out like that. He notices that the heavy ogre had already vanished before his punishment even landed. The world's strongest man is shocked as he understands Soda defeated the boss all by himself. The protagonist sleeps peacefully in the commander's arms after the great battle. With a smile, Yamato says the boy is a really interesting guy, calling him Soda-chin. He continues to hold the sleeping young man with a calm, thoughtful expression. Suddenly, two new characters appear, the captain and vice captain of the first squad. Captain Keikaru complains that Yamato is going to get an earful from the association for this. The commander replies that convincing others is Keikaru's role on the team. He also says that recruiting a promising new member requires a flashy performance. The captain understands and asks if the new member is the passed-out kid. Yamato confirms him, entrusting Soda to the first squad's care. Keikaru agrees, saying he was already planning to invite him to the team anyway. Back at the hospital, Soda's mother is seen quietly reading a book in her bed. She glances at a family photo showing her late husband and Keikaru together. The woman thinks that raising the young protagonist is now her most important duty. Meanwhile, the captain also reflects, saying he will fulfill his duty to look after the